Hey guys, MC Stu here, and today we are going to look at ground weapons. So today what we'll be going over is 5 of my top picks of free ground weapons that you can pick up either from vendors or primarily they're going to be from mission drops. These weapons are good weapons, effective weapons. They're not necessarily like OP, but they will be very good for doing any of the mission content and TFOs. Most of the higher end stuff is going to come from either the rep system or from potentially the Lobby store, although there are some mission drop weapons that I will use on some of my main high end builds, and one of those will be included, which we'll take a look at. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first one is going to be the Jem'hadar full auto rifle. This rifle comes from a mission, the second wave, and this comes out of I did a whole video on it. It's an arc that was pulled from the mission log, but it is still available for you to get. I'll link the video on how to unlock that mission arc down in the description for you guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at that here. I haven't gone through the whole arc on this character, but I have gone far enough in order to grab it. So if we look in the available tab here, so I've already completed, that's why it's listed now. So let's double click on it here. All right. So if we scroll down here, you will see you can pick more of a pistol or a pistol, or you can go with the full auto rifle. So the full auto rifle, it comes at rare quality level in Mark 11. So you will need to upgrade it to, make it better depending on where you're at. I mean, if you're lower level or your gear's not real high, then, that's not going to be as big of a deal. But obviously upgrading your gear is always a good idea. This is going to synergize real well with the rest of the set. So there's an armor set and shield set. You're probably familiar with that if you have a Jem'hadar character. The Jem'hadar character is going to come with this set stock. But any other character, race, or any other tune that you have can also get this full set by playing through these missions from the Lost Dominion arc that, like I said, was pulled out of the journal, but is still available. So if you wanted to go full Polaron build, you could pick up the other 2 pieces of this set, which will give you some boost Polaron and some other set bonuses. I'm not going to go over that in this video because it's primarily about the particular weapons. Let's say that you aren't far enough to unlock those, but you still want to pick up a weapon like this. You can purchase most of the different factions' weapons from the vendors. So Deep Space Nine is a good place where they'll have these. So behind me here is the ones for the Dominion. And if we come over to this guy here and talk to him, go to rifles, you'll see you can pick up rifles of a couple different flavors. Now, the auto rifle is not in this list. So you can go split beam, sniper, high density. I would recommend going with the split beam. That's going to be the most effective, especially for story missions, because you have more coverage. You can shoot more targets at once. The high density rifle is going to give you generally a much larger damage boost, but it's going to be much shorter range than what you would have on the split beam, full auto, or the sniper. Obviously the sniper is going to give you a little more range on your attack, but you're not going to get as much damage out of that either because you're giving it up for that range. So I would recommend going with the split beam, or the best one would be the full auto from the mission. But if you haven't unlocked that yet, or you just want to pick it up just to kind of check it out, I'd recommend going and grabbing it from one of these vendors here. And I'm just going to buy one. So I generally will, when I buy from these vendors for these kinds of things, I normally will get the lowest mark I possibly can when I do that. So the reason that I will get it at the lowest mark level like this is because it makes upgrading it to a higher quality much easier. And I'll demonstrate that here. Let me see if I have any Phoenix upgrades. I got one, so we'll just use the one there. So if we go here and we say upgrade, from Mark 1, every time you go from Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, every time you go from one mark to another, you have a chance for the quality to go up. So the lower you start, the more chances you have. And going from Mark 1 to Mark 2 to Mark 3, the lower marks in between those is going to be much cheaper than what it would be, let's say, if you started at, a Mark 6 or like a Mark 10. So generally, rule of thumb is that, especially if you have, Phoenix upgrades and things like that, and you want to upgrade gear, being able to get it at the lowest mark is going to be the easiest way to get that to boost up to the next level within these first couple mark levels. So let's go ahead and just start upgrading this here. So we got green, and you'll see every time the mark or the quality goes up, your chance comes down a little bit, but I still have 20% here. If I had started at a higher mark level, then it potentially is going to cost you a lot more resources on the back end. So we're at blue. So we're now at the quality that it would have came from the mission. Again, it is a different rifle, but that's the reason that I purchase those. If I'm getting it from the vendor, I'm going to go with the very lowest one that I can get. So that's number one on those. This is good too if you need different flavors. You can go to the other vendors and pick up other ones for doing your endeavors and things like that. But for me, I really like the way that these weapons look when they fire. I like the way that they sound, and I think they look good overall. Nice little beefy rifle there. I really liked them on screen in Deep Space Nine. So this is going to be my number one on the list here. Let's go ahead and take a look at number two. All right, for number two, we have the Lex Throwing Knives. Now, these do not have a visual when it's holstered or anything like that, only when you start to use them. And these are kind of an interesting weapon. They're a little bit different than anything else. They do physical damage, kind of like you would get from a sword or something like that, but they are ranged. And these are a lot of fun to play with. They're very good against the Borg if you don't have, say, a Tommy gun or maybe one of the TR rifles. These do really well because they give 100% shield penetration, and there's not an energy weapon type tied to it, so you don't have the problems of needing to refrequence your weapons when you're fighting against Borg on ground. They do very well against any other enemies as well because of this 100% shield pen. So you can see the DPS rating on it, and these are upgraded, but they're still the basic quality that they come in is 311, and I have not re-engineered these or anything like that. If they're even re-engineerable, are they? They are. So these are a lot of fun. They're a little bit different, again, than what you would have traditionally with a rifle or a pistol or a cannon or something like that. They're really the only weapon in the game that's like this, where you have what would normally be considered like a melee weapon being able to be used as a ranged weapon. So basically, you would go up to enemies and from a range, it's not real far, but you're able to throw these 100% shield penetration, and you kill things very, very quickly. So they are very effective. I generally will use these without auto fire on because it just kind of gets weird because of the animation. So I'll normally set it up to throw, and there's a secondary function as well for those. So I generally am going to manually click activating these particular weapons. These are going to come from the Gamma Arc, and they are going to come from, it's lucky number 7, and I can't remember if that's exactly what it's called. Let's just look here. Gamma, I know you're right in front of my face. It's at the beginning on the Jem'hadar. Gamma Quadrant and Quark's Lucky 7 is what we're looking at here. So if you play through this mission, this is actually, for me, probably one of my favorite missions in the game. You play basically a couple different characters throughout it and use their abilities, their weapons, their setups. It's really, really cool the way that they did this particular mission. There's nothing else in the game that is like this, which I guess makes sense with the kind of weapon that you get, where there is nothing else like that in the game either. So another very cool, unique weapon that you can get completely for free just by playing through the game. And this is a mission that if you haven't played it yet, when you get to it, I think you'll really enjoy it. Because like I said, it is very unique in the way that they put it together. I'd love to see more stuff that's like this. It's very creative and cool. All right, let's move on to weapon number 3. For number 3, what we have is the full auto phaser rifle. Now, this is sold out of the Lobby store, but you can grab essentially the same weapon from a mission, which is the plausibility of the possible. Let's take a look at the weapon itself, and then we will take a look at the mission. So this is a discovery error weapon. It looks really good. It's it's kind of tactical looking, which I like. And this does a very good amount of damage. This performs very, very well. I use this on a lot of my top end builds that are not kit centric, which really, if you're looking at the min max meta stuff, kit centric stuff is really kind of where it's at. But you got to get through the stories and really build up the resources before you can really start putting something together like that. So this would probably be one of my top recommendations for weapons, and because you can get it from a mission drop, this makes it even better. So let's take a look at the weapon. So this is, it's not quite fully upgraded, so it's ultra rare at Mark 15. It does 126 phaser damage times 3, so 315 DPS. It's a very, very good weapon. The secondary firing mode, it's kind of like a split beam, kind of, where it's going to fire basically a cone of AoE, is what the description is here, of 80.7 phaser damage times 5. So the DPS on it is lower because your secondary firing mode is going to have a cooldown on it, and so that's why that drops that DPS down, because when you average that out over time, you're just going to get less out of it because of that cooldown. But essentially it goes into a scatter firing kind of a mode when that secondary firing mode goes off. So let's take a look at exactly where to get this weapon. And this weapon, it does not drop as the mission reward. It's actually something that you can pick up in the mission. So through, as you're playing the mission, you'll be sent to the armory at one point in it. You'll talk to somebody in there, and then you'll be able to claim this off the rack. You'll see it lit up in there. It used to come at ultra rare, I believe. I think that's why mine is like that. I think it comes at very rare now. So, you will have some upgrading to do, but even just stock, especially if you're, working your way through the story, or maybe you rolled, another tune and you're kind of skipping around, just kind of grabbing gear. You're not necessarily playing through the story. This would be one that I would skip to fairly quickly just to pick up the weapon. If you're not interested in playing the whole thing, you don't even have to, because it's something that you actually obtain during the mission. So this is in the Discovery arc. It's the first one in the arc, and if we look at the rewards, you're going to see it's not listed here. So if you play the mission all the way through, at the end, you'll have a choice between the armor or between a pulse wave assault rifle. So don't be confused when you go and look at the mission. It is not a reward that you pick at the end. It is a drop that you pick up during the mission. So when you go into the armory, you'll see it. It's part of the objectives. You'll grab it from there, and then you can either leave the mission after that if you want to, or you can complete it out if you haven't played it, obviously, so you can get through that content and pick up the rewards from the end of it. All right, next, let's go ahead and move on to weapon number 4. Okay, for weapon number 4, or weapons in this case, these are something that were added in as a mission drop last year. They're pretty unique as well. So these are 7's dual rifles, Tetryon rifles. These were shown in Picard Season 1, one of the earlier episodes where she is fighting. I believe they're at like a station and they're fighting some Orions, or I don't know, some kind of gang, and she ends up with 2 of these in her hands and starts blasting away. It was a pretty cool scene, and so they added these in as a mission reward, and they are pretty cool as well. These I have upgraded to Mark 15s. They come at 12s. And there's only, I think, one other, and I think it's a bug. There's one other set of weapons you can get on the KDF side. They're sniper rifles, but they're dual, and I think it's a bug, but there's basically dual wielding, and they're huge too on top of that. So other than that, I'm not aware of any other kind of rifles that are going to give you, this kind of effect with, having 2 of these. So it looks it looks pretty cool especially when you're aiming them, and they're pretty decent weapons as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the specs on the weapons themselves. So these are going to do 155 Tetryon damage times 3 with 352 DPS, which is pretty decent. These also do kind of a spread AoE, kind of scatter firing mode for the secondary mode, which actually do quite a bit more than the phaser rifle. Now these numbers are going to vary, all these numbers that I'm showing you, depending on how you're spec'd out, what your build is, and all those different kinds of things. But they're very decent weapons. Again, they're very unique in the way that they look, and the fact that there's two of them, and they're also rifles, which is kind of cool. Let's take a look at the mission that they come from. So this is going to be in the... Is it in this one? Yes, it's right towards the end. So the Jula's Discovery, there's a two-part at the very end. The Measure of Morality. These are going to come from part 1. So when you play through, this is actually going to be a mission drop from completing it. And once you have completed it, you can either pick the kit module or you can pick these weapons. So again, another 100% free mission drop set of weapons that are very good and effective and nice and unique and look really cool. Especially if you're doing the whole Space Barbie thing, these might go real well depending on the theme that you're working on. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the last weapon. All right, and for number 5, we have the Corfeld Plasma Cutting Laser. Again, another very unique one. This one is one that I used a ton, especially as free-to-play. It was very, very effective. I really enjoyed just the visuals that it had. It was very similar kind of feeling, I guess, to some of the bullion cannon that you can get. I know I'm saying that wrong, and I'm probably saying the name of this weapon wrong as well. Let me know down in the comments. You guys are real good at correcting my mess ups with that kind of thing, and I'm terrible at it. So, but this weapon, let's go ahead and pull it out here, and we'll kind of talk about what it does here. So let's look at the specs first, and then we'll take a look at the way that I like to use it. So let's take a look here. Okay, so this is going to do 106 plasma damage times 4, 224 DPS, which is pretty good. You have a 5% chance to start plasma fire on the enemy. That's going to do 50.3 plasma damage every second for 10 seconds, which is a nice little proc when it does proc. Now, the secondary firing mode is what I really like about this, and I'll demonstrate it for you guys here in just a moment. So expose attack, it's going to do a beam of AoE damage for up to 10 seconds. And we'll talk about that 10 seconds here in just a moment. So per second, this is going to do 65 plasma damage and inflict plasma fire for, again, another 50.3 plasma damage per second for the 10 seconds. Now, what's cool with this is you could pair it, like if you were on a tactical tune, you could pair this with like ambush or any other damage boost that you have before you use the secondary firing mode. So let's point it over here. So the way that I use this is I'll keep the primary firing mode on auto fire. So we'll be moving through a room, I'm targeting, it's firing, and it's doing its standard shot. Well, when I come up against a boss or maybe a group of enemies, what I'll do is I will use a damage boost, either a battery or ambush, or it just depends on how your build is and what class you are. And so I'll click that, and then I manually will activate the secondary firing mode. So let's go ahead and do that. Check this out. You can do this in social zones. And so it just sprays this laser here, and you can just kind of sweep the room. So if these were bad guys, you would be catching them on fire and doing all of that damage to them. And this will run for 10 seconds. If you wanted to turn it off early, you can click it again, and it will turn off that secondary firing mode. So it's one of the few weapons for me where most of the weapons I leave both on auto, and as it comes up off cooldown, it'll just fire. But on this particular one, I'll actually manually click it. It just seems to be a lot more effective that way. It feels good, doing it, especially when you got a group of bad guys or a big boss or something like that, and you're able to hit that firing mode, and it just starts spraying this laser out the front of it. It just looks so cool. It's like I said, I use this quite a bit when I was free to play. Again, there are some better weapons in the game. There's a lot of better weapons in the game, especially when you're looking at Lobby and some of these other lockbox weapons and stuff. But for a free drop that you can get from a mission, this thing is awesome. This thing is really cool. It looks cool. It feels cool when you're using it, and I like the way that you're able to kind of control those two modes. I mean, you can control other weapons modes like that, but none of them are as dramatic as what this is when you use that secondary firing mode. And I like the fact that you're not tied to a target when you use it either, so you literally can just sweep it around the room, hitting enemies and doing quite a bit of direct damage and plasma fire. This also will synergize real well, and I don't know if I'm using the kit on her. I am, and I go over this in my ground build 101. I'll link that down in the description as well. So the Romulan Imperial Naval kit frame is going to also boost plasma damage as well as giving you this crit chance and crit severity. I'm not going to go real deep into this, but boosting plasma is something that's pretty easy to do, and there's some very good pieces of gear that you can get from mission drops that are going to synergize real well with plasma weapons. And so this one obviously falls into that category because it does plasma damage. So I would definitely recommend picking that up. If you're lacking on weapons and you're just kind of grabbing whatever, I would definitely look at picking this up. I would also look at the Ground 101 build video that I have. There's basically a complete guide to a free-to-play build on the ground, and a lot of that stuff is things that we'll use at in-game or even if you're not free to play. And that's what's really kind of cool about a lot of this ground stuff. There's not as much of that kind of thing in space. I mean, there is, but there's a lot more stuff you can get for space, right? So you can replace all of that stuff that's actually pretty decent for space that's free with better things that you can pay for on ground. There's things like the not cool shield and two-piece set with the weapon that come from a mission drop that you're gonna find this on basically every high-end build. Doesn't matter how much money you've spent on the game. So that's pretty cool when it comes to the ground gear that is available. So this is going to come from the Gamma Arc as well, just like the Lex knives. And that's going to be at the bottom of the list this time because we're not on a Jem'hadar. And that's going to come from the first mission here, so Storm Clouds Gather. So if you go ahead and run through this, at the end you'll be able to pick between some Polaron space weapons or the mining plasma laser. Or cutter. I'm not going to say the first word again because I'm sure I was pronouncing it incorrect. So let me know how to say that, guys. So that is it for my top 5 for free-to-play ground weapons and beyond. I mean, depending on what you like to use, what you want to use, a lot of these can be min-maxed and are just as effective at end game that they were leveling up and those kinds of things. So there's such a huge selection. I mean, it really just kind of comes down to what do you want to do. I mean, could you get a little more DPS out of something else? Probably in some of these instances. Does it matter? No, it doesn't. So most of the time when I'm doing especially missions and things like that, I'm going to fly builds and ships and ground builds and use weapons that I just enjoy using. It doesn't matter if I'm doing the min-max damage because what difference does it make? If that's your thing, that's totally cool. And I am very competitive. I do a lot of the high-end runs and I like that kind of thing, but that's not everything, right? And I realize most people that play the game are playing it for the experience, the space Barbie, and just being able to live in the Star Trek universe. And so for me, when I do a lot of the PvE stuff, that's solo, I just do what feels good and what looks nice. And this is by far probably one of my favorite ones out there. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope that was helpful. If it was and you made it all the way to the end of the video, please consider hitting the sub button, ringing the bell if you want notifications, giving me the thumbs up. I really appreciate that. Thank you to everybody that does subscribe to the channel. Let me know down in the comments what kind of ground builds you are using, what other kind of unique and cool stuff is out there. There's so much in the game. I don't know even a quarter of it. And anytime we do these videos and you guys give me that feedback, I'll start Googling it. I'll go pick it up. I'll check it out, and I've been able to find all kinds of just cool stuff that I had no idea that existed. Even though I make these videos and these kinds of things, I certainly have no clue in terms of everything that's in the game there. So I really appreciate your guys' feedback and comments on that. All right, guys, until next time, thank you very much for watching. Have a good one. Hey guys, appreciate you watching. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, ring the bell, and sub to the channel for the latest news updates and how-to guides.